Hi, my name is She and I'm a Math SAT tutor. Anyone studying for the Math SAT has always come across this problem. Which topic should they prioritize first? In this video, I'll be analyzing the frequency of each topic appearing in the SAT practice papers and what types of questions they appear as. If you'd like to watch more of these sorts of videos, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Let's start by looking at every topic covered in the SAT Math portion. I looked through every question on the practice paper available on the College Board website and classified them by topic and method of solving. Overall, the most common topics appearing in both sections are linear equations, basic algebra, statistics, systems of equations, functions, and quadratics. However, it should be noted that these topics are also the largest topics content-wise. Now, what if we look at each topic according to where they appear in sections? If we look at just section 3 itself, also known as the No Calculator section, you'll notice quite a few changes. The topics of linear equations, basic algebra, systems of equations, functions, and quadratics are still the most common. However, the statistics topic does not even appear at all in this section. In fact, topics such as percentages, data, or conversion don't show up either. This means you don't need to worry about being fantastic at dividing with decimals or working with large numbers. Now, if we look at section 4 by itself, the calculator section, more topics with significant percentages show up. The topics linear equations, basic algebra, statistics, systems of equations, functions, and quadratics are still the top few. But topics such as data, percentages, and relationships are on par with the most common topics. So, what does this mean? This means that you should prioritize linear equations, basic algebra, statistics, systems of equations, functions, and quadratics first, followed by data, percentages, and relationships. Now, I'll be breaking down the types of questions that appear for each topic. Let's look at linear equations first. The most common question type for linear equations are identification and interpretation. Identification problems typically require you to identify the equation of a line. The question may appear as coordinates, a graph, or a word problem, and they require you to know either the slope-intercept form or the standard form of the equation. Interpretation questions, meanwhile, will provide the equation or graph of the linear equation and will require you to identify the slope or the y-intercept or describe the slope or y-intercept in terms of the question's context. Let's now take a look at basic algebra. The two most common question types for basic algebra are solving and simplifying problems. Solving problems can range from directly solving for the variable, forming an equation yourself to solve, or manipulating the equation to get the expression the question is asking for. Simplifying problems can involve combining like terms, identifying coefficients, or simplifying equations and inequalities. Statistic problems only appear in section 4. However, they still take up a large portion of the SAT. The most common types of problems are mean, median, standard deviation, range, probability, and sampling problems. Mean, median, standard deviation, and range problems typically test you on finding either the mean, median, or mode, using the mean to deduce a missing data point, or identifying how it would change when results are added or removed from the dataset. Probability problems involve directly finding the probability from a set of data, finding missing data, or a combination of both. Lastly, sampling questions usually test you on inferring conclusions based on percentages of successful trials or margin of error. There are very few types of systems of equation questions. Most are typically solve or equation forming questions. Solve problems can involve directly solving for a variable, word problems where you have to form your own equations, or just observation of adding or subtracting the two equations together. Equation solving problems are more direct. They just need you to read the problem and form equations or inequalities. Let's now take a look at functions. Functions problems are generally made of three types: plug, manipulate, or equation forming. Plugging type of questions requires you to either plug in a certain value into a given function, plug a few numbers into the equation to check for the right or wrong answer, or plugging values directly into a graph to read. Manipulate questions will usually provide an equation and requires you to isolate for a term. Lastly, equation forming problems either involve forming an equation from a problem or gives a similar version of the equation and requires you to use a general formula such as area, volume, distance to form the final answer. Lastly, let's look at quadratics. The most common quadratic questions involve solving for zeros, identifying the vertex form, or interpreting values. Solving for zero requires you to use either complete the square, quadratic formulas, or the zero product theorem and factorization to solve for the zeros. Whereas vertex form requires you to remember the formula and be able to identify minimum, maximums, or the equation in vertex form. Lastly, interpretation questions requires you to interpret either the x, y intercepts or the minimum and maximums. So there you have it, the most common topics and question types all broken down. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe.